The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Join the excitement and sign up to Jeff Banks online now to get 10% off any net losses returned as cash after your first month of betting up to £500 at jeffbanks.bet.
Welcome to the Final Furlong podcast. I'm Emmet Kennedy. It is great to have your company and great to be joined by the betting and gaming editor for The Sun, Sam Morgan, as we break down a huge weekend of racing for you. Sam, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Emmet. There's no place I'd rather be on what is probably the hottest day of the year than stuck inside discussing horse racing. But there we are. We'll make the best of it. Somewhere
there's an ice cream, a cocktail, and a nice decking with some barbecue for you to go to. So we'll race through this as quickly as we can. Giant killing performance to begin with in the King George. Hats off, Tanya Stevenson. 20-1, she put the horse up. It goes off at 25s. Goliath, the first French-trained winner of the King George since Hurricane Run in 2006. Also ridden on that day by Christophe Soumillon. I didn't see anybody else tipping this horse. Tanya, well done. Qipco, Tanya Stevenson, and she'll be back on the Final Furlong podcast very, very soon. Goliath travelled beautifully. You could call him the winner a fair way out. He is the fifth fastest winner of this race for 24 years, the first gelding to win the race, and the first French-trained winner since 2006. Round in the final bend, there was only going to be one winner.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, someone did, Emmet, because if his SP was 25, he was available at 33, so maybe Tanya emptied the bank on him, and she may no longer be on the show because she's living in the Caribbean now. So, yeah, well done.
Well done, Tanya.
That was an incredible tip, really. The one thing that I'm actually kind of laughing at after this, though, is Francis Graffard. Obviously, Goliath has been gelded, so everything about this victory would suggest, oh my God, get him to the Arc, but can't run in the Arc. Same as Calandigan, who was such an impressive winner at Ascot as well. Francis, you need to put those scissors away. Just let those boys do their thing for a little bit. Get them in the Arc. You must be kicking yourself. But this was an amazing performance, wasn't it? Soumillon celebrating what felt like a furlong out, up in the saddle, punch in the air. Really, really, really great. It was, bookmakers must have been absolutely loving it. There weren't too many cheers at Ascot when he passed across the line in front, but you just got to take your hat off. It was a brilliant training performance. Owner was completely stunned. I saw that he still couldn't get over it on Sunday, saying I'm in complete dreamland. And he seems like a character, right? When the videos watching him go back into the winner's enclosure, he was stomping his hind legs. I saw that he's got stringholt, a neuromuscular condition that kind of, instead of walking quite serenely like this, the back leg was going up like this and hammering down on the floor. So obviously he looks a bit of a character. Maybe he can be a bit, not a head case. Maybe there's quite a bit going on in that head of his. And, the sort of really, really, well, too strong a pace they went up front obviously played to his liking exactly as he would have wanted, not to Auguste Rodin's liking. But maybe everything just fell into place for him this day. Kind of hard to see him perhaps backing it up. I just get the impression that this was his perfect day, and fantastic that it comes in the King George. Really interesting to see where this guy goes next, though.
You couldn't help but feel sorry for the connections of Isle of Jura, because he buried him in the Hardwick, and had he been in this race, he clearly would have gone very, very close. It does just seem like everything went right. He's got that red hot pace that you normally don't get in a middle distance race, certainly in Europe, and that has definitely not played, ironically, to the advantage of Auguste Rodin. I think Rebels Romance comes out of this with huge credit. The attitude seemed to be, right after the race from Charlie Appleby, that Hong Kong Vaz might very well be the target for him, or he could go to America and join the American team now. I'd love to see him in America, because he'll win another big Grade 1 over there, and I think the 12-1 that's currently on offer about him for the Breeders' Cup Turf is too big, but it's either Hong Kong Vaz or the Breeders' Cup Turf, and we don't know as of yet, so hold fire for now. Given the fact that he's the only one who manages to place being up in the van the whole way through, I think that's a massive performance from him, actually, and I'd rate it very highly. Bluestocking has come from off the pace and has been benefited by that, clearly. She's run a big race. She's hung right again, but Content had already boosted her form from the Pretty Polly, and she's run a massive race again here. Goliath maybe wasn't actually best positioned because he's only just behind Auguste Rodin, but he just travelled so well that it didn't matter. I just don't know if he's going to get a race run like that again. If he does, major danger. But he's not the horse I'd have in mind for the Breeders' Cup Turf. I'd have Rebels Romance in mind for that. Or Auguste Rodin, clearly compromised by how the race was run, this searching early gallop. Luxembourg wins another Group 1 and he's relegated to the role of second-class pacemaker in the race to just ensure a strong gallop, which was a worry with him. And you just go back to that day in Santa Anita and you just wonder if you could whisper in the Magner's ear, hey, if you keep this horse going, he's going to get beaten in Dubai. He's going to get beaten in the Tattersall's Gold Cup. He'll win a Prince of Wales, but then he'll be beaten in the King George. You'll have had 4 runs and he'll have been beaten in 3 of them. Or you could just retire him now, and Saxon Warrior covered over 250 mares last year, so there's clearly a real demand for that Japanese bloodstock line. Maybe just send him off to Coolmore Stud, but they kept him going, and I'm starting to wonder if they're regretting that now.
Oh, this hallowed son of Deep Impact. Are we seeing his stud value just plummet before our very eyes? The House of Coolmore is coming crashing down. Not really. Definitely safe. Let's start at the beginning here, shall we? It didn't go right with Hans Andersen basically falling at the source. Auguste Rodin had to make his own running for the very first part of the race, didn't he? And then Sean Levy eventually caught up and they sort of set into the formation that you'd like to see. I very much take your point on board there. With the pacemaker hugging the rail, leaving a slight gap, and then moving off the rail for Auguste Rodin to come down. In that case, Hans Andersen going out into the middle of other horses having to be pulled out and go around. Is that really racing? Maybe that's a debate for another time. And there are a lot of people don't really think that's in the best interest for the sport, perhaps. But who is Auguste Rodin? Like, what is he going to do now? The drift before he went off was alarming, wasn't it? Annoyingly, I'd backed him before this. I thought he was good last time out. He was the only one who could go close with White Birch time before that. Obviously, we haven't seen him since. We don't really know what's going on there. I thought, everything's back to how he should like it here in this race. And he never looked really comfortable. It looked to me like he was really sweating going around as well. Looked keen again. The head was bobbing up and down. Ryan Moore didn't seem to me like he was ever really, really relaxed and comfortable with it. Of course, what came out afterwards was that Aidan O'Brien said the ground was nowhere near or nothing like good to firm. And those who would have punted Auguste Rodin anti-post or even on day, whenever, would have been doing so on the basis of the ground being as described. Aidan was fuming afterwards, right? That clip that was on ITV Racing was really quite interesting. The softly spoken guy who thanks 100 people after a horse wins a race, but never himself. But in credit to him, it's always the first one to hold up his hands and say when it's gone wrong. And it probably went wrong again here. Hans Andersen slowly away. From there, a horse of Auguste Rodin's quality should be able to still see out the race and get into a racing position that's going to give him the best chance of winning. And it just didn't happen. Again, he either wins or kind of bombs out. I guess this wasn't quite bombing out. He still finished over 11 lengths behind Goliath, so it wasn't dead last, and he's tailed off sort of 80 lengths or something like that. But what a head scratcher of a horse. And I actually, there were some quotes from MV Magna quite a few weeks ago. He was talking about the emphasis now that Coolmore, or the impact they'd like to have in Japan and the breeding operation over there. And he was asked about Auguste Rodin. He said, I think we've really got the key to this horse now. I think we've really sussed out exactly how he needs to be ridden in a race. And I took that as a massive vote of confidence. And then, maybe they have, and it just didn't work on a day. And fair enough, if the ground wasn't exactly as he needed and it was sand all over the place, like Aidan was suggesting. Sure, we'll come on to that in a minute. But what a head scratcher of a horse. What you do, his stud value must have serious question marks over it now. I don't know. Maybe he does go Breeders' Cup. Maybe he goes Japan Cup. I think Japan Cup might be the goal. Let's see what happens over there. But a real nightmarish horse to try and back now. Do you want to pray that he just comes good again? Because when he's good, he's so good, isn't he? But he's just very temperamental, and he seems to need every single aspect of a race perfectly aligned. I guess, look, we were just saying this, like for Goliath, maybe everything came together on a day. Maybe actually in a weird sort of way, that's what Auguste Rodin needs now. He's just been able to do it more times in the past. Or maybe he was a better horse a year ago than he is now. It's so hard to put a definitive answer on this horse. Who knows? Does Aidan O'Brien even really know? It's a tricky one, really tricky.
I don't think anyone knows at this point. He's ridden prominently in the Irish Champion Stakes, and he was handy enough in the Prince of Wales. He was held up in the Derby and held up in the Breeders' Cup Turf. And he was brilliant in both of those. He was very, very brave and very gutsy in the Irish Champion Stakes, and the very same thing applies in the Prince of Wales. Why did he need to be ridden as prominently as he was in the King George off such a strong gallop? Like, maybe just take him back and allow them go off 1,000,000 miles an hour in front, and that's going to compromise Rebel's Romance. And then you come from off the pace. Ryan took him back in the Breeders' Cup Turf when things didn't go well early on in that race. and had the confidence to know, I know you're still going to get up. So I don't know what you do with him now. It's a real head scratcher. They're talking about the Japan Cup. There's also a quote in the Racing Post, plans up in the air. Does that mean that you're rethinking which race he goes for next? Or are you rethinking whether you race him again next?
Yeah.
Maybe you're just better off to roll the dice again and try and get another Group 1 and then go, oh, see? This is how good he is when everything goes to plan. I wonder if the Irish Champion Stakes comes into play, because is City of Troy going to back up from the Juddmonte into the Irish Champion Stakes that quickly? Maybe. I'm not so sure they'll do that. And maybe your simple thing to do is just go for back-to-back Irish champions and then go for back-to-back Breeders' Cup turfs. What do you have to lose at this point?
Yeah.
The ground. There's a bit of a debate amongst the ratings agencies. Racing Post and Timeform have their own things to say. I know you've got a bit on that. But the times for every race in the card were slower than standard. Definitely not quite as good as it had been at Royal Ascot when it was good to firm, because the going stick, the reading was coming back 6.8 compared to 9.2.
Well, firstly, to go back to Auguste Rodin and the way he's ridden, whether he's dropped in or prominent, how adaptable is Aidan O'Brien's plan on the day to how he wants a horse to be ridden? So he said that the warning signs were there when we walked the track Saturday morning ahead of the King George. He said the inside was nowhere near good to firm. It was nothing like. There was sand all over the place, and we knew at that moment that alarm bells were ringing. So, okay, so they're still going to stick with the plan of Hans Andersen to go out, hug the rail, Auguste Rodin to come in the slot when it opens up. He said, look, I hold my hands up. In hindsight, we shouldn't have gone for that. We should have gone for the middle of the track where the ground was better. Okay, that seemed to me like quite an obvious change in tactics to make. But perhaps certain things have been rehearsed and they felt on the day that they had to stick with what they were going to do. But, you know, even so, there are question marks there for me, just how adaptable they are to how things play out on the day. Secondly, do we trust, a couple of them says, do we trust official going descriptions? Because
no.
Has anyone in the world got better at training a horse, flat horse, than Aidan O'Brien? No. If this guy who knows every single element of racing inside out at the back of his hand is saying it's so different, then how can that be? How can we be betting on something that we're told is this when in reality it could be this? Now I'm saying it could be this because it's still Aidan's interpretation on the day, isn't it? But it just opens up a can of worms to me. You know, you're basically better off not punting on anything on the day until you've watched the first few races and you're building up to the feature race and you have some idea. If you're a sectional times watcher, then you're like, okay, it's above, below standard, whatever. You can see, I mean, you can even see bits of turf kicking up, things like that. You know, it just raises a lot of uncertainty for me, and I feel like this is an area of racing where we should have some certainty. So I was looking at the fallout from Aidan's interview with Ollie Bell and ITV Racing after the race, and loads of the comments were like, oh, come on, Aidan, you got beaten by the better horse, suck it up, just say it as it is, you know. And there was actually a really great one from commentary great Simon Holt. He said he actually found what Aidan was saying an insult to Ascot, which I thought was quite strong wording, really. And Timeform did come out swinging as well, didn't they? And they said that the times of the races actually back up the official going description. So I was quite loving this back and forth. This is really quite juicy stuff, isn't it? This is entertaining. But bigger picture from this aside, well, yeah, you're obviously in one camp. You don't trust the official going descriptions. But then if that was to come into your play and having a punt in a race, surely you have to some extent, unless you go to the course 2 or 3 days before, check it out for yourself. I mean, you can look at weather forecasts, loads and loads and loads, and try and make a bit of guesswork on that. Watch as many videos as you can from, let's say, Clark of the courses out there. And Chris Stickles did back up, by the way. He said, I have full faith in what the reading stick was, and the time and the Valiant supported our official going description as well. But it's a very, very tricky one, this, for me. And it seems like it's popped up quite a few times this year where a trainer has said it's different as it's being advertised. And I think it's not something we want to make a habit of, I think, because it just chips away at that trust we have in, I guess you call them authorities or the people who should be providing accurate information.
Think about Cheltenham in day one and what the going description was before racing. Think about what it was after the first race. Think about what it actually was.
Yeah, vastly different, isn't it? Yeah.
Different course. I know I'm not having a pop at Chris Stickles personally, but I think this is just a little bit, this is something we need to know about properly. This is information we really need. And you and I are going to talk about stewards' inquiries a little bit later on. I don't know what the hell what's going on there on Sunday, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Aidan O'Brien was talking about the fact that Luxembourg lost 2 shoes and that wouldn't happen on good to firm ground. So again, don't think he was being harsh on Ascot. I think he was very frustrated that it might not have been as advertised as they said, and I think he's fully entitled to be asking those questions.
It's one of the biggest flat races of the year, isn't it? And then it's just staggering
it's
to me.
Supposed to be.
Such a difference. Yeah, is it losing its luster? Yeah, that's another discussion for another time, isn't it? But yeah, I don't know. I just find it quite hard to have something that should be black and white, cut and dry, to have this level of difference of opinion over what it is for one of the feature races of the year.
I mean, you could also make the argument, why does Luxembourg go off the rail in the way he does? Why is Luxembourg being ridden as forward as he is? Because he's ridden very handily in the Irish Champion Stakes. He was obviously a horse who controlled the pace in the Coronation Cup. He controlled the pace, though. He was given a beautifully patient, timed ride out in front to completely dictate that pace, boss it from the front and go and win. That's not the ride he was given on Saturday. But I do not think Aidan O'Brien is going to come out saying what he said in the way that he did, unless that's how he genuinely felt about it. Just don't think he would.
Yeah. Just quickly, would you upgrade Bluestocking comes out of this with a big tick next to her name for me?
Yeah, she'll win the Yorkshire Oaks, assuming she gets there safe and sound. Jeff Banks has gone 7-4 about her. I think that's very, very fair. Don't see what stops her. Don't really think there's a whole lot of super talented 3-year-olds at the moment either, especially with Azalea gone to the breeding shed. Maybe content can improve, but she'd need to improve massively to be able to go and beat Bluestocking. So she'll win the Yorkshire Oaks, I would think. Don't know what the latest is on Ylang Ylang. Hopefully she's okay. But yeah, she'll win that. It's the second year in a row that Juddmonte and Rafe Beckett have been second in the King George after Westover last year. You'd like to see her in the Arc. Yeah. Afterwards. She's not doing herself any favours by hanging to the right, but she's a very, very talented filly. And absolutely, I would upgrade Rebels Romance. Absolutely. Yeah, I think he's the only one on the front end to keep going and manage to place. I think that's a huge effort from him.
Agreed.
Let's switch to York, shall we? Where, unfortunately, that is going to be it for Passenger. It's at least Passenger done for the season. It's possibly him done completely, which is a real shame. Sir Michael Stout just getting no luck when it comes to these talented horses. He obviously lost Desert Crown last year, tragically. Look, hopefully they can get him back and he can race again, but I don't know. Alflaila wins the race for the second year in a row. King's Gambit, I thought, ran really, really well, considering only one 3-year-old has won this race, and that was the first running of it back in 2006. So he's proved that he is up to this level. But Passenger gets injured, so doesn't really run his race. And the four of them have kind of finished in a bit of a bunch. What did you make of it?
Stinky race for me. Stinky race, this one. I was looking at what Jim Crowley said afterwards. It was quite good to see that his mind was quite scrambled about how it was going to play out as well. He said it was always going to be a messy race and tactical with 4 runners, no confirmed front runner. I wanted to have Passenger covered, and it wasn't until the last 100 yards that my horse Alflaila really picked up and flew. I mean, great in a if you can wait around for what you can basically guarantee is going to be a messy race, and Alflaila to just put on the afterburners when it turns into a bit of a sprint. Yeah, I don't know. Crowley did say afterwards, though, he loves it here at York. I really do think he has a Group 1 in him. But there was a bit of difference, I think, from the bookmakers afterwards with regards. I think it was his Juddmonte odds. Anyway, Sky went 12s, Coral went 8s, and I was just looking earlier on Odds Checker. There was still, normally by now, when the dust has settled on the race a little bit, they're starting to align a little bit more. I guess it depends what the liabilities are. But for me, the fact that in this day and age, you've got bookmakers 4 points apart in the betting just suggests that no one really quite knows what to make of that race at the moment.
I thought it was a great ride from Jim Crowley. I think he continues to be, for whatever reason, underrated. The guy's absolute class. And showcase that again in this race. He's just brilliant. You can set your watch by him. But I don't think City of Troy was losing any sleep. I think
no, it depends which City of Troy turns up again, doesn't it? It's a bit like Auguste Rodin in that regard. Who are we going to have?
It's only happened once. I don't think that's fair, to be honest. The Coral Eclipse is the second lowest rated or joint lowest rated for 10 years.
Yeah.
There was certain people saying they'd walk the going coming into question, that they'd walk the track and it was much more sticky than it had been for the Dewhurst. So, and the O'Brien team apparently had been seriously contemplating taking him out of the race beforehand. But his potential rivals are Ambiente Friendly, who he's beaten in the Derby. So unless Ambiente Friendly improves dramatically for going back to 10 furlongs, don't see why he beats City of Troy. Economics, where is he? Wasn't he supposed to run in this race?
I saw some missing posters for Economics earlier. Where's he gone? bounty if you can find this horse again, please.
Have you seen this horse? Last seen with a bloody nose in the winner's enclosure at York and hasn't been seen since. Speaking
Dangerous.
of, where's
Do not
White
approach.
Birch? Yeah, do not approach. Proceed with caution. Where's White Birch?
Who knows? They're also having the summer off, like we should be.
Like he keeps missing races. There's no sign of him. Maybe Caledonian, the gelding turns up. Maybe is 10 furlongs going to suit him at York? I don't know. Maybe it will. This fella probably goes. Auguste Rodin not going to run because City of Troy is going to be there. He doesn't have anything to beat.
No,
He's nothing to beat. So he just wins. Ugh.
yeah, he's. Do you know what? Yeah, he is coming in as well, isn't he? He was. I did. I know some people are on a much bigger prices. I did put him in annoyingly with Auguste. They were both 7-4 once it came through that they were basically their confirmed targets. I was. I watched Auguste short and short. To be fair, he didn't get super short, did he, Auguste? He was kind of 5-4, and obviously the drift on the day. But yeah, it's quite disheartening, isn't it? When a top class. I mean, the Juddmonte was the highest rated horse race in the world not so long ago, wasn't it? And always attracts a pretty class field. And when it's coming down to who else is he going to be? What else is going to be there? It's a bit. But look, this is horse racing. Anything can happen. But I do 100% take your point on City of Troy's claim here.
Yeah, he wins, but also Passenger breaking down. He gets injured at least anyway. But how robust are horses these days?
Yeah.
We don't really seem to have strength and depth in the middle distance divisions. It's just not there anymore. And the couple of horses that actually could be able to come through and do something really dangerous. Azalea, gone. White Birch, who knows? Economics, who knows? Passengers now out for the season and possibly done for good. Where are these horses? This sport cannot afford to lose these horses. Is it not a ludicrous situation that Goliath and Caledonian can't run in the Arc because they're geldings, but they can run in the Juddmonte International?
I was just going to say, I'm amazed you haven't seen some people. Bloody French coming over here, stealing off their Group 1s. Who do they think they are?
Tommy Robinson with a big sign going, "Get these Frenchies out of her!"
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't look like we're going to do the opposite and go over to the Arc and win that. Well, we could, but, look to Vega looking so brilliant, really, and shortening at the head of the market. Like, is that going to flip reverse, and are we going to give them a taste of their own medicine over the Arc? Oh, probably not. I don't think. I don't think Auguste Rodin and City of Troy are going to go there. So maybe it's the year of the French in the top middle distance races.
Well, since I put up Opera Singer at 20-1 with Jeff Banks Bet on this show a couple of weeks ago with you, Jeff has cut her to 14s. Let's go! We're in a decent enough position with Opera Singer. Now she's got to go win at Glorious Goodwood first of all. Let's get her through that one first, shall we? And then start getting very excited.
I stuck with Al Riffer, who was available at 33s. I mean, I'm just looking now, you can get as short as 20s, but still plugged on decently against City of Troy at a price. I just want an interest, with the draw being such a big factor in the Arc. I just want to have a bit of an interest at a price in the Arc, to be honest with you. It's not a solid selection by any means, but I thought, going to have to improve massively, no doubt, but look to Vega, looks the one there.
Even that, we're only talking about a horse who's won the French Derby. We've no idea what he's going to do. Is he Ace Impact 2.0? Maybe he is. Saucy was good the other day in the Grand Prix de Paris. I think the last winner of that to go on and win the Arc was Rail Link, but he's with the right man, and he could certainly go and do it. City of Troy won't run, I don't think. You really look into that Arc. There's just not a whole lot of strength and depth in the middle distance divisions. It's good for us if we can figure out who's going to run in which races and take good prices about these horses now. Rebels Romance at 12-1 for the Breeders' Cup Turf, for example. Go on, Charlie, do it. You know you want to, Charlie. Never mind Hong Kong. But yeah, just a few questions there.
This episode of the Final Furlong podcast is only possible with your support, listening and watching, and with the support of our sponsors. So give me 60 seconds to tell you about Jeff Banks Bet. Betting on horse racing used to be very simple. It was us, the punter, versus them, the bookmakers, the old enemy. But today, betting with online bookmakers is zero fun. Online betting companies promise you the world, but if you have the nerve and the audacity to place a winning bet, they will make you jump through endless hoops just to access your cash. It is not fair and it's not fun. And betting is supposed to be fun. Jeff Banks is different. He's one of the most recognizable faces in British racing. He's got pitches at racecourses all across the United Kingdom. He is a true horse racing fan. And while Jeff very much promotes responsible betting, he is standing up and fighting back against these insane affordability checks. Affordability checks that will destroy the levy and kill British racing. Sign up to jeffbanks.bet right now. Use our promo code FFP500, and not only will you get access to a bookmaker who values your custom, who is a racing fan, but he'll give you best odds guaranteed on British and Irish racing, and he'll give you 10% cash back on net losses after your first month, up to £500. Gamble responsibly, 18 plus only, begambleaware.org. It's tradition refined with modern tech and unbeatable odds. Use our promo code FFP500 and place your bets now with Jeff Banks Bet. This is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp Therapy Online. Have you ever found yourself comparing your life to others? With social media, it's so easy to look at someone's Instagram and think, wow, they've got it all together. But let's be real. Everyone has their struggles, and often what you see online is just a highlight reel. One thing I've learned is that comparison can really steal our joy. Instead of focusing on what others have, therapy can help you center on what you want and how to achieve it. It's all about becoming the best version of yourself. Now, whether or not you've been in therapy, it's important to know that it's not just for those who've gone through major trauma. Therapy can teach you positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, and empower you in your day-to-day life. If you're considering starting therapy, why not give BetterHelp a try? It's entirely online, making it convenient and flexible to fit into your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a registered therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time at no additional charge. With almost 5,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp provides access to mental health professionals with a wide range of expertise. Stop comparing and start focusing on what truly matters with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/furlong today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/furlong. This has been a paid advertisement from BetterHelp Therapy Online.
A few questions about the John and Teddy Gosden team at the start of the season, and some people were giving Kieran Shoemark a real licking. Turns out, given the ammunition, he will deliver the goods. He was brilliant on Friendly Soul, and straight after the race, John and Teddy Gosden were very much highlighting the fact that this is their best 3-year-old. They don't really have a whole lot of strength and depth, and that's on them, not on Kieran, and that he was brilliant here.
Yeah, I was looking back at that Musadora and just how unraceable and rideable, whatever you want to call it, she was there. I mean, she was completely out of control, wasn't she? And then looking at Gosden Senior's quotes after this most recent win, the Group 3, he said, we gave her time after York. She did this in good style. She's a type of filly to get better as the year goes on. Kind of reminds me of what people have said about Inspiral, that actually. Interestingly, I said, I think she's going to be a lovely filly next year. But he did point out that in the Musadora, the stables were to the right of the start. And he said that she caught a glance of those and she cocked her jaw. And from that moment onwards, she was never going to be in a position to win that race. But yeah, it was really impressive here, actually. And I think it's great for Kieran Shoemark to, when he went into this role with the Gosdens, and my Sun Racing columnist Matt Chapman broke the story that Kieran Shoemark was going to be this was really funny. He was going to be their number one rider, but we couldn't say retained rider because John was like, well, he's not the retained rider. You know, we still have different riders, different horses, but he is our number one rider. Okay, he's your retained rider. He's not a retained rider. He's number one. So obviously, like after what happened with Frankie, and they had that big bust up, didn't they? And then they kissed and made up again. And it was a bit of a running storyline throughout his last year or penultimate year, whatever it was. Yeah, there's no doubt that Kieran Shoemark is, in my mind at least, is a good jockey. I think I'm actually very lenient with with jockeys, and I never, unless there's a blinding stinker that comes out and you can just, any person can kind of tell that a horse is in the wrong position in a race or what. But it's really good for Kieran Shoemark here, and I think coming in for Frankie Dettori, no one can ever. You can replace Frankie Dettori, but there's only ever going to be one, isn't there? And do you know what? I'm thankful that Kieran's a totally different character to him, because it reminds me a little bit of, the Eminem song, The Real Slim Shady, all the others are imitating sort of thing. No one wants another Frankie Dettori recently, actually. And this is not a barb at Frankie anyway. He was just such a big character that I think there's only really room for one of him in probably the history of racing forevermore. But yeah, great for Kieran. Let's hope he kicks on, and he's been given some really, really good horses that the Goslings have got, and obviously for top owners. And it's not just John, is it? It's John and Tady, and I think the kind of second, I'm viewing it anyway, is the second half of this flat season. I hope that he plays a bit of a blinder here and can really build on it. And I think he's spoken really well about not letting the pressure of the job and the enormity get to it, and kind of a bit of a what will be attitude. And some people take that as the wrong way to be, and should be thinking, win at all costs. My career's on the line every single time I go out there. And deep down, he might feel like that, but I think on the outside, he's very calm. He's pretty self-assured. I actually think he's quite self-deprecating in some of the interviews. He comes across very honest. And yeah, relief for him, happy for him, whatever you want to call it. I think this was good for him.
He just hasn't had the firepower. It's as simple as that. And if you don't have the firepower, it's not going to happen. Unless you're Oisin Murphy, who's just winning on horses that have no right to win, which is just insane. How far is he clear in the Jockey Championship now? Is it 57? It's unbelievable. It actually might be.
I'll tell you what, Emmet, I'm not sure. I don't think Ryan Moore and William Buick are racing at Goodwood on Friday and Saturday. Maybe are they in the States? I might be wrong in this. I'll have to check this up. But with a certain bookmaker, you can get Oisin Murphy top jockey at Goodwood at 5-1, which might be a bet.
Really? There's Saratoga. There's the Saratoga Oaks Invitational, which I believe Diego Velasquez is going for the Derby Invitational.
Yeah, that's correct. Ryan's in Saratoga Friday and Saturday, and his last race at Goodwood at the moment will be Wacko Kid at 2:25 on Thursday.
You said someone's going 5-1 about Oisin?
A certain bookmaker, yeah. You can get 5-1. Okay. Oisin Murphy, top jockey, Goodwood.
Okay, that could be definitely worth a play. Let's race through a couple of the Juveniles future stars, shall we? We'll start with a pretty easy contest for the Royal Ascot Hero Bedtime Story. She was devastatingly impressive there. Wasn't as impressive in the Silver Flash, but was still very, very good. Just didn't win by 27 lengths. This is a race that Aidan O'Brien has won with multiple Group 1 winner Love and juvenile Group 1 winner Yalang Yalang in recent years. So it's a race they target good horses at. And she won it very easily.
She won it as a 16-1 on shot should, didn't she? Yeah, what can you say? She's one of the most exciting horses in training, I would say. And I was looking at what Aidan said afterwards. He said the education she got here is exactly what we were looking for, and it was a great place to get it. And I found this next bit particularly interesting. I'd say it would be hard to go fast enough for her. She might go to the Curragh for the debutante en route to the Moyglare. It will be hard to go fast enough for her. That to me is a bit of anyone else. If you think you've got anything that can try and put her off a game, hair off in front, you can do whatever you want. She can't go. No race that could be fast enough for her right now. Now, I guess you could try and play the opposite and dawdle in front and change the tactics completely how a race might pan out. But she looks bomb-proof to me. She looks rock solid. She's
a very exciting filly. I'm sure Gerald Lyons will have a crack at her. I don't know how much he's looking forward to it with his two very exciting fillies, but she looks an absolute superstar. That was easy for her. She must be one of the shortest price winners in the history of that race, but still very, very exciting prospect indeed. Godolphin have got an exciting prospect, a €2.3 million purchase. Son of Justify, he was bought for 150,000 as a yearling, 2.3 million. The Breeze Ups as a 2-year-old. Look, the business. This is a race that they won last year with Arabian Crown.
Yeah, this was performance of the week for me. This was absolutely staggering turn of foot. I think this was sensational. It looked like Buick was getting pretty low in the saddle. About 2.5 furlongs out, and you just think, okay, is everything going to plan here? Is this race turning out exactly as he wanted? And then he's just drawn out a little bit, and I mean, the injection of pace was jaw-dropping, wasn't it? This is what racing is all about. I love seeing a horse absolutely hack up like this, and yeah, like you're saying, Charlie Appleby's squad of juveniles, 2-year-olds at the moment is looking really, really good. And it wasn't that long ago at the start of this year. Do you remember we were saying, might have been talking to you actually, Emmet, what's going on with Dolphin? It seemed very quiet over here this flat season. And I remember you pointing out that perhaps targeting a few more races in America and then look at the prize money on offer over there. A more horse is going to do a Rebels Romance and be a Globe Trotter. private jetted all over the place, just hoovering up mega cash. All of a sudden, they've got a bit of a cracked squad, including one who could be pretty good at Goodwood this week. I saw he's being backed. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I think it's Omori City.
Yeah.
Who is running in the
Goodwood? Vintage
Stakes, yeah. There was a bit of money. Obviously, we're speaking on Monday. There was a bit of money for him early. It seems to have petered out a little bit. But that, in addition to Al Qudra, and a whole host of others. Sorry, the names escape me right now. But what a sort of flip from the start of the season, where we were quite unsure about perhaps Godolphin's intentions with racing in Britain, to all of a sudden having a really, really strong crop. Whether they all remain here and race here is something that we'll only find out in the future, I guess. I imagine some might be diverted elsewhere. But yeah, pretty exciting. And you've got I kind of feel like you can't help but root for Charlie Appleby. He could walk down the street and very, very few people would know who he is, I think. I don't think this must be quite a nice life. Was he getting paid quite handsomely by Godolphin to train horses at some of the best, most up-to-date, luxurious yards in the world, yet able to go about your life without, I don't know, autograph hunters? There's not going to be paparazzi for Charlie Appleby going around, are there? Let's be frank about this. But yeah, exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what Godolphin have. And I think it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm slightly put off by the fact that he doesn't have any fancy entries. That's an unusual one for Godolphin. Like, they've got their entries for the Vincent O'Brien National Stakes. He's not part of that. For the record, they've got Al Quadra, Shadow of Light, Anno Domini, Ancient Truth. They're the only ones entered for the Vincent O'Brien National Stakes, and that's a race that Charlie's done very well in the past. You couldn't be anything but impressed with the visual impression there, and he was very, very green throughout the race. Like, he needed to learn, but once he did, whoosh, game over. And he was sent off a ridiculously short price in a big field 2-year-old race. He's 9-4 on favourite. I know he cost an absolute fortune, but that doesn't mean that he's going to go win on debut, but he has. I would take a very positive view of it. I think Ruling Court's going to be a horse very much to be keeping an eye on. Some bookmakers put him the same price as the Lion in Winter, Aidan O'Brien's horse, and it's going to be fascinating to see what both of those can go and do. The Lion in Winter didn't have any fancy entries either.
Do you know what? An interesting point in that I was going to bring up earlier, back to Francis Graffard with Goliath and Calandigan, and I'm not saying the decision to geld the horses was his, but I'm sure sometimes trainers get it wrong, don't they? And probably can be taken aback by how much a horse can improve and just think, oh, shit, didn't have him down as a good one. What are we going to do now? Obviously certain races are supplementaries and stuff, but I do quite like that even these guys at the top of their game can be taken aback by one in their own bunch sometimes. Yeah, funny.
I asked a breeder and a trainer about this before. They said, well, how do you know the horse didn't improve for the gelding operation?
Yeah, true.
But the trainer said, here's the thing that's very impressive about Aidan O'Brien. He can't go to John Magner, Michael Tabor, and Derek Smith and say, hey, guys, I think I can get Blackbeard to win a Group 1 juvenile race for you, but I need to chop his bollocks off first. Do you mind? Like, yes, we do mind, Aidan. Yes, we do mind. You need to train him as a full horse. That's just not the option that he has. So when he manages to achieve it, he's having to work with a horse that might be very, very difficult and could do with being given a gelding operation, whereas other trainers are given a little bit more leeway. Speaking of Charlie Appleby and 2-year-olds, Al Quadra, this fella's going to go for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. This is what Charlie Appleby said straight after the race. He boosted the Coventry form. He was really, really good. The point from Charlie, I think, was that you need to have a little bit of experience to really excel at in America. He already has that experience. There's no betting available for the race yet, but I'm pretty excited to see him in action in America, particularly given Charlie Appleby's unbelievable record out there. Once he takes aim at a target at the Breeders' Cup, he rarely misses.
Yeah, I was quite surprised to see that. That was Al Qudra's 5th run of the season, which for a horse that they obviously hold in very, very high regard is probably not all that common for them to put them on the track so much. So yeah, I guess that would have been the plan all along. If he's saying experience is what counts out there, let's give him the experience here and send him over knowing what his job is, because there's going to be a lot there that will be new to him. I guess the travel, the climate, the track, everything, the size of the crowds, the ground, whatever. So yeah, he goes there, an old head on young shoulders, should we say?
And Semmering was a good winner for Ollie Sangster, his second juvenile runner, both of them winning black type races back to back. One in Sandown on Thursday night, and now this one at Ascot on King George Day. It's good to see. I want to end with the Stewards' inquiry and demotion of Flic Ou Voyou. I still don't really get what the stewards saw. I still don't really get what their point was, but this is the Stewards' inquiry report. An inquiry was held to consider the placings in this race after interference after the final fence involving the joint winners, Flic Ou Voyou, ridden by Danny McMenamin, and Get Up Mush, ridden by Harry Skelton. The stewards considered that the interference had improved Flic Ou Voyou's placing, as the gelding had made a mistake at the last fence, which resulted in McMenamin losing his irons and his mount edging right-handed into the path of Get Up Mush, which had to be switched around the eventual winner and briefly lost ground in doing so. The interference was found to be accidental, as McMenamin was quick to correct his mount, having briefly become unbalanced after losing his irons. Please explain to me where this horse caused interference and Get Up Mush had to go around. He's in his slipstream. He has to go around anyway.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, did it just say that it was found that the interference was accidental?
Yes.
That's right, yeah, okay. So this is kind of, it's very, very hard to wrap your head around this. And I've watched the closing stages of that race about 3 times, and it's still a tricky one to figure out. It was originally came through as a dead heat, then that was kind of the result. Then I'm not sure how much later the Bing Bong went for the Stewards' inquiry, but then there was a Stewards' inquiry. And then
on-course bookmakers had paid out on the dead heat.
Right, so there you go. So then there was something about they couldn't announce the Stewards' inquiry until a result had been confirmed. And
that's not a thing, by the way.
It just seems needlessly complicated here. And yeah, again, Emmet, I was looking at the reaction to, and we need to point out here that Flic Ou Voyou was 66-1. Right, yeah. And the decision ultimately came down in favour of the 9-4 favourite, Dan Skelton train, Harry Skelton ridden, Get Up Mush. There were quite a few comments on that as well. But you know, when you've got someone like Paddy Brennan coming out saying this, what were they even looking at here? This is one of the most awful stewards' inquiries I've ever seen. Brendan Powell said, awful decision. What is going on here? Who is holding these stewards to account? And if a jockey in this day and age is found to have breached whip rules a certain number of times, they have to essentially go back to kind of jockey school, right? If they're a apprentice or conditional or whatever, they have to go and have like sort of retraining. I always think, do you need this for stewards now? Do you need to go and, is it whether they go to Specsavers or they go and almost like sit an exam? What would you can almost imagine it like an exam question. Watch the footage. Would you call an inquiry into this? The answer, yes, no. And you kind of almost have to pass an exam to be able to sit it. I don't know, but this was certainly one that got a lot of punters really riled up and really angry. And on the basis of how is what's happened here enough to warrant a stewards' inquiry? And I kind of get the flip side to it though, in that if it is just, let's say it's caused an inch of interference, well, is that enough to say that Get Up Mush would have won by a nose? You know, in that case, are they the sort of margins we're talking about here?
Well, I think on a strict interpretation of the rules, they're right. On the strictest interpretation of the rules, they are right to throw out the winner. Assuming you can justify that he has actually caused interference. I don't think you can. Because as I said, to my eyes, and I'm a dum-dum talking into a microphone, what do I know? But you look at the head-on, Harry Skelton is in the slipstream. He's going to have to go right anyway. And when he does, he can go right, he can go left. He goes right. The horse has to cock his head briefly. That's about it. That's the momentum that gets lost. It's like, oh yeah, he's had to do that. But it's not like he's bumped. He doesn't get dragged across the track violently. So where's the consistency? I'd take you back to Aintree, to the grade 1. Impere Pass. Well, by their logic, he should be thrown out. We put up Impere Pass on the Final Furlong podcast. From memory, Adam Mills tipped Langer down at a big price. George and I laughed at him and went, yeah, right, whatever. So anyway, Impere Pass wins. I think Adam Mills has every right to feel like, actually, we got done there. Like, that horse should have won. There was a lengthy stewards' inquiry. Rachel Blackmore explained that she'd had interference caused. Harry was adamant, and it's visual evidence that he has significant interference caused. Well, then how did you throw this horse out? What? Is it because Langer Down finished third, and you don't like the fact that you have to place him behind the horse he's caused significant interference to, so you'd have to place him third, Langer Down second, and the winner is the horse who wasn't actually directly impacted by the interference? Well, that's a cop-out as well. Either it's happening or it isn't. Either the horse has broken the rules or they haven't. And this will get thrown out on an appeal. They'll get reinstated as the joint winner. But that's no good. The day is over. The fun is over. The getting your hands on the trophy is over. You don't get paid out in the win either. Like, none of that is there. This is a nonsense. Absolutely what you said, these stewards should be held to a higher standard. But also, just centralize it. Why do we have stewards on course anymore? What's the point in this? Have a core team of stewards, all via video evidence. The Americans do this at certain tracks. VAR has its problems, but when it works very well. Do it that way. It's video evidence. You have all the camera angles. If you really need a jockey's opinion, and a jockey is going to tell you what suits them and nothing other than what suits them. But if you have to ask a jockey, Zoom, this is StreamYard. You can see them perfectly fine. You don't even have to get them in the stewards room. They don't do that in America. Remember when Paris Court got demoted from the Arlington Million? That was back in 2004, 2005. He's on a phone. They didn't have to bring him into the stewards room to bollock Spencer out of it. That's how you sort it out. This is complete nonsense. And it's just a total lack of consistency.
Yeah, and also the difference between interference and race riding. Like you say, Skelton was doing all he could to win the race there. He was in the slipstream. He had to switch the horse. There was nowhere else he could have gone. He would have run literally into the back. A Flic Ou Voyou, wouldn't he? It would have been a crash, essentially. He was only doing what he had to do to get out. It wasn't interference that necessarily forced him to go right. He was literally just running into the back of a horse. So it looked from the replay I saw. But I think you're also getting into, well, this is an age-old question, I guess, isn't it? And particularly pertinent when it's a dead heat. But the amount of interference caused. Do you remember, I think it was the Riddler at Royal Ascot, was it a couple of years ago? He basically veered across half the track. Do you remember that?
Paul Hannigan,
Yeah, that was it. And Hannigan kind of said, I did all I could. The horse was just going one way. I could everything in my power to try and keep him in a straight and narrow, but he was just going that way. And
Actually, I remember interviewing Paul Hannigan about this when he retired, and so we can laugh about it now. And I think we can laugh about it anyway. He said, I didn't cause any interference at all. It's just like, interference, I didn't cause any interference. It was all good. After wiping out half the field.
I felt like it was about 50 yards of interference caused, and about 7 horses got caught up, But then now we're talking about interference being an inch potentially, and then the runner-up or the dead heat, the horse who dead heated in this case, having to do that anyway because of the way the race is unfolded. I think we're kind of looking for a utopia in this, where we're never ultimately going to have massive consistency across the board with it, and in this day and age when so much is down to software and AI, perhaps we could have robotic stewards in the future. Who knows? When it's down to human error, you're always going to have mistakes made, aren't you? But I guess, and like you said, I'm not sure if the trainer Flic Ou Voyou was actually going to appeal. I think he said, we might look at it, but I'm not quite sure at the moment. I guess it will come down to the owners and stuff. But very important, as you say there, if the result is if the placings are reversed as a result of an appeal. I did see a quote from I can't remember who it was, a quote from an owner the other day, and he said, we're delighted we've won, albeit belatedly, but the fun of the day we've missed out on. We didn't go into the winners' enclosure. We didn't get the trophy. We haven't got any photos to show for it. What story have we got? We just had an email come through saying, places reversed or whatever. So I do really, really feel, as much as this is a kind of argument about consistency of stewarding and interference and all that, I do really feel for connections here that might have been robbed of one of their best days on a race course. Who knows?
The whole rule is, well, we want the best horse to win. Okay. But they both cross the line together and the interference is minimal. So if that's interference, then Imperi Pass has got to go. And the Riddler's got to go. And every other horse who causes interference has got to go. And if you're not going to do that, all you're going to do is cause complete confusion amongst the punters. There couldn't have been anybody who looked at that race yesterday and went, yeah, that winner's in trouble. Like, no way so could you have done that. Whereas when we were covering the race for TalkSport 2 with Imperi Pass in the entry hurdle, my initial reaction on TalkSport 2 was, oh, he's gone. They're going to throw him out. I was amazed he kept it. And the more you saw it, the longer the inquiry went on, the more you went, actually, maybe he'll be all right here. But I was pretty certain now he's going to go. They're going to throw him out. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, what is this that you don't want? You don't want the extreme American version of that horse sneezed on the other one, so he's out. Like, you don't want that. the French rules were changed to come more in line with the British ones. But what does that even mean anymore? Like, if it's just that it's open to the interpretation of the stewards on the day, then it's whichever steward is in whatever mood and whatever interpretation they have on the rule. Do you remember Simple Verse winning back the St. Leger after being demoted on the day?
Oh, you've told me about this. Yeah.
Yeah, so Bondi Beach gets hampered twice by pretty reckless riding from Andrea Azzini on Simple Verse. She's first past the post, gets demoted. Bondi Beach gets the race. It's a huge thing. The stewards come out, they explain their decision, and then a couple of weeks later, after making an appeal, the race is given back to Simple Verse. I thought that was outrageous. I really thought that was absolutely ridiculous. It was clearly dangerous riding. You should not reward that at all. We've had countless conversations about reckless riding and trying to ensure that this win-at-all-costs mentality has got to be done away with because somebody's going to get seriously injured. And then yesterday, it's a completely accidental incident. It's got nothing to do with the jockey. He loses an iron, then loses a second iron. The horse causes minimal tiny interference, and you punish him. How well had he done to win that race after everything had gone wrong on him? He's riding a no-hoper, loses an iron after losing momentum at the last fence, loses his second iron, still manages to get the horse over the line to win, and your reward for him is, yeah, you're out, son.
Yeah, you actually bring up a really
nonsense.
good point there. Yeah. There have been from what I've been looking at the feedback, very few people saying about the brilliant horsemanship of Danny McMenamin. And you do raise a really, really good point there. It's something that shouldn't be lost in the cesspit, if you like, of debate over stewards' inquiries and decisions and how they judge a race. So yeah, let's end on a high by praising him. Come on.
Yeah, well done, Danny. I hope you appeal it and I hope you get it because you absolutely should. That's just a nonsense. Okay, that's it. We're back on Thursday to preview the weekend's racing. George will be back for that one too. Hope you could join us for that. In the meantime, likes and shares are much appreciated on social media from Sam Morgan and me, Emmet Kennedy. We'll talk to you again very, very soon on the Final Furlong podcast. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Join the excitement and sign up to Jeff Banks online now to get 10% off any net losses returned as cash after your first month of betting up to £500 at jeffbanks.bet.